Hello, I'm Rin.
And I'm Katya, and we're from the Commonwealth Center for Holistic Herbalism here in Boston, Massachusetts.
So happy Ostara. Ostara is the vernal equinox or the spring equinox. This is the time when day and night are of equal length.
If you think about the year like a cycle or like a wheel, this is one of the quarter days of the year, and of course it's the easterly one because it's the beginning of spring as the wheel sort of goes around. And if we think about the old agrarian holidays, we can think about that time from Ostara into Beltane, and Beltane is like the beginning of summer, um, sort of the place where you kind of start believing that summer is going to be real. So in between that space, our cycle circle, the space where we're expanding in our own emotional selves, is moving out to include the things that support your family. So not just you, not just your family, but also the things that support your family. So in agrarian culture, that would be like everything up to your fences. So your pastures, your animals themselves, your gardens, your land, your farmhands, if you had farmhands, or any other people who were supporting your agrarian efforts. All those kinds of people, this would be the time that you would be looking at supporting them.
Yeah, and like we did previously, we can actually get astronomically precise about when exactly the Ostara falls, and so technically this morning, Monday, March 20th, 2017. Ostara happened at 6:29 Eastern Daylight Time, because this is the moment when, if you're looking at the sky, the sun would cross over what's called the celestial equator. So this is an imaginary line in the sky that kind of bursts out in all directions from Earth's equator. And the sun moved across that from south to north at exactly that moment. And I was just writing up some notes for this, and I was realizing that I think my cat woke me up at like exactly that time. I think Glory Kitten jumped on me while I was asleep and said, "Hey, it's happening now. Let's do it."
She would be the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is when spring begins and everybody is really waking up from the winter, right? So this is all that energy of spring cleaning and all that making way for new life. This is the fertility and rebirth time, and so that those symbols are really prominent in all of the traditional rituals at this time, right? So planting seeds, or working with eggs, hunting them, dyeing them, painting them, whatever. Bunny rabbits and flowers and all those kinds of things are very symbolic right now, because that's what's going on in the world, right? So, and of course, all over the world, there are similar holidays of this that are all recognizing the equinox in their own way. So you can compare Holi, for example, which is a Hindu celebration, and that is the festival of colors, and they actually run around with all these colored powders, and they throw them at each other. And since some of them are turmeric, and turmeric dyes your skin really very well, I imagine that for several days after Holi, people are still colored from the dyes that were thrown, and probably you would have to wear special clothes for that, because I would imagine it would.
Oh yeah, you wear white. You wear white, and then they get all colored with the yellow and orange. And
it's probably very
pink.
pretty.
Yeah. These days they're mostly synthetic color powders, but historically, yeah, they would use turmeric, and I've heard neem, and probably whatever else was the most colorful plant around to make those.
Sumac for the pink.
Yeah, totally.
So, and of course, at this time of year, if you're in a Christian tradition, that's Easter, and those ideas around the resurrection, that's the same sort of idea, right? Like everything's waking up again. Spring is coming. The whole earth is waking up again.
We can also look at something like what's called hanami. So this is like a Japanese tradition of going out to the cherry blossom parks and having a picnic, or in fact, in modern times, even having a party out into the night where the kids kind of go crazy. Apparently, the older people like to go to the plum trees instead, because I guess plums are a little more relaxed than cherries. So, so that's done all over the world now, wherever people have cherry blossoms. And you can actually, while I was looking at this, I found somebody down in Washington D.C. where they have a bunch of cherry blossoms around the Capitol. And there's actually like an Instagram you can follow called Cherry Blossom Watch. And they'll have an update every single day on what the weather's doing to the cherry blossoms, and oh no, it's going to get cold, and are they going to come out tomorrow? Like trying to predict the peak time for that. So That's kind of cool. And then there's a Persian holiday or a modern Iranian holiday called Nowruz, and so that goes all the way back to Zoroastrianism, but that shares a lot of concepts with the idea of Ostara about sowing your seeds, about doing your spring cleaning. There's a lot of focus on flowers, and I also learned that there's a traditional kind of a set of dishes that you would make for people when you were having a celebration there, and that included a few medicinal plants in it, like garlic to stand in and represent medicine and being healthy, sumac for the sunrise because it has that like dawn pink red color to it, and then a thing they kept calling senjed, and it took me a little while to realize that was actually what we call autumn olive. So it's not blooming for us and fruiting for us here in springtime, but anyway, so autumn olive that was used, and that was going to represent love. So that's kind of fascinating too. And there's similar traditions like that in Afghanistan. Same idea.
So all of these traditions, Ostara in particular, as sort of that base tradition, they're all marking the beginning of spring, and so that association is with the blooming of many of the early flowers. So we were out today checking them out, and we've got maple and crocus and dandelion. There's some maple flowers.
I love maple flowers. I watch for them every year now. I love to see them. They make me so happy.
I don't know if you're anything like I was growing up, but when I was growing up, if you told me that trees had flowers, I mean, a cherry blossom maybe, but it never occurred to me that every tree has flowers, but all the trees have flowers, and we don't think about them. Maybe you walk past and you just think they're buds, or maybe I'm looking at our maple tree through the window, or maybe, whatever, but it's really fascinating to recognize that those are flowers, and you can just get right up to them and check them out, and they really are so intricate and so beautiful. So definitely do that. We have crocus and dandelion. We have snowdrops that are blooming right now. Around this time of year, you'll see dead nettle blooming. It's one of the really early ones to come up. And a lot of these might be, if they're not quite ready to bloom yet, they're leafing out.
Yeah, just on my walk home from the office today, I saw lesser celandine out over in the park, and next to that, a whole bunch of wild onions all growing up right through the forest floor. Smell good, taste good. It's pretty nice. There's some other dandelions around there that aren't really to the blossom stage yet. There's a bunch of ground ivy. There was garlic mustard all through there. And out over there I saw some. And then right here next to our house we have a little bit of a tiny, tiny little nettles just getting started. And we wanted to talk a little bit in particular about nettle today because that's a good representative of the early spring greens and alternative herbs that are going to be coming out at this time and starting to be more and more available to us right here after Ostara.
Plus, it's like every herbalist's favorite plant.
It's nettles. I mean, yeah. We'll probably talk about this one a lot, actually. Maybe today we could just talk about the leaf a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Great for the kidneys. Oh, sorry, did I get to that?
No, it's your turn.
Like, everybody's like, ooh, let's talk about nettle. Everybody always wants to do it. Fantastic for kidney health. Nettles are very high mineral. That's super important at this time of year anyway, because if you think traditionally, through the winter, people would have been eating root vegetables and preserved meats and dried fruit, and all that food is very heavy. And at this time of year, everybody is just dying for a salad. That's what everyone wants. And part of that is because trying to get at that mineral content and that bright green chlorophyll content, and nettles has both of those in spades.
Yeah. And then nettles have sting as well. And when they're these tiny little babies, it's really fun to go and get stung by them. And it's this little like, I got you. Like it's kind of cute. Because eventually they're going to get a lot stronger and they're going to sting you like they really mean it. And it's actually good for you. You can call more blood to the area as your body responds. And that'll flush out some old stagnant fluids and some metabolic trash and stuff that's been hanging out in there. So that process called urtication is a really old one for arthritic conditions and other kind of stagnancy problems. And so when it's springtime, that's the earth waking up from the stagnant season. Everything's coming alive and getting moving again. And so stinging yourself with nettles is kind of a little way to tap into that energy and to feel that in a tiny little spot in your own body and then reflect on how that's playing out in the rest of your body and in the rest of your life.
I was leading an herb walk once, and I was talking about nettle, and a mother with a, I don't know, 2 or 3 year old child was walking by, and she saw that I was talking about nettles, and so she stopped, and she said she was telling her child, "Oh, you listen very carefully." And so I'm talking about nettles and talking about, how great I think it is, and then I jump down from the like little walkway into the nettle patch, and I invited everybody to come and touch the nettles because it's really great to feel that sting and to recognize that not just is that sting has medicinal value, but also that sting is nettle being in relationship with humans on her own terms, and reminding us that it's not okay to just walk up and take whatever we want, right? You need to ask, you need to do it respectfully, you need to do it in relationship. And somewhere somewhere early in that conversation where I was jumping in and inviting everyone to touch it, and wouldn't this be great, the mother just gasped and packed up her son and rushed away with the stroller and was like, "No, no, no, don't you ever touch that plant." And I just kept going because I was in the middle of a plant walk, but
Yeah.
it was really funny. It was a little bit sad. um but but a lot of us are raised, you're like, "Oh, that will hurt you." Well, yeah, this thing is uncomfortable, but it won't hurt you. It's actually, it can be very, very medicinal or beneficial, and it's really important to recognize that not everything that is uncomfortable is actually harmful. Lots of things that are uncomfortable are really beneficial for us.
Yeah. New life, new growth. That takes a lot of work, and that's not easy, but it's super important. So we can work with nettle leaf. We can go and get stung by it. We can make tea out of it, and we can steep it a long time to try to get all of that mineral value that we were talking about out of there.
Once you make tea, it doesn't sting anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Oh well. You can cook with it as well. You can eat it. It's actually surprisingly delicious. And one thing we like to do a lot with many of these plants that are starting to come out now is to make like a wild green salad. So we could have a little bit of nettle leaf in there if we were feeling brave. If not, we can smush it a little bit, and that will kind of neutralize this thing some. But we can put that in with our dandelions and the wild onions, and when the violets come up, and all of those little spring greens, and we can make a little salad out of them and eat them that way.
Especially the garlic mustard. People really don't like garlic mustard. They call it invasive, and garlic mustard is a little bit more aggressive than the average plant. It does like to make space for itself, and it does put it secretes some organic chemicals into the soil that makes it hard for other plants to grow in that area, so that it will grow better. On the other hand, we don't need to use pesticides to get rid of it. Just pull it and eat it, because it is totally delicious, and you don't have to worry about over harvesting it. It'll come back next year. Don't worry. Just pull all of it that you can see and eat it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and when we do that, we'll be getting a little bit of spring cleaning for our kidneys and for our livers as well. So we can have food in our medicine, we can take care of the earth a little bit, we can bring in all of that kind of springtime energy, and a lot of good things will happen with that.
Yeah.
So
this time of year, you might be wondering, or you might be thinking about your garden and how your garden will grow. And I like to think about that metaphorically as well. So I like to look back at New Year's and think about all the plans that I had and all the goals that I set, and maybe so far they're not working out totally perfectly. Maybe I was very ambitious with setting my goals and very excited about it, and actually maybe I bit off more than I could chew or whatever else. But right around now is that time where a big rush of new energy comes in, and we get that new energy from having more sunlight, and the plants are starting to do it like all around everywhere. There's just this rush of new energy coming on. And so the things that maybe you were very excited about, but sort of maybe you fell off the wagon or whatever, you can take advantage of this rush of new energy that's happening, and you can use that to get back centered in the goals that you had. You can also think about this time a little bit like the calm before the storm, like this equal moment where everything is so balanced. It's just that right moment. It's like the breath right before the dive. And when all the plants start coming up and blooming in the spring, I mean, like, I don't even like to drive during that time, because the plants are also noisy, and it's like kids coming back from summer vacation in September when they go to school, and it's exactly, they're all just like, hi, hi, what did you do all winter? I'm back, I'm back. And they all have something to say. And this is that last moment right before that happens, and then it's the rush of spring, and then oh my goodness, summer, and then the rush of the harvest, and then we'll relax again when it's wintertime. But that just sort of take this moment to have that pause and take that breath and think back over, how is your year going to go? How is your garden going to grow? And maybe recommit to some of the things that are very important to you for this year.
Yeah. So during that moment of equipoise, we can take a little pause. We can play with things that have pause on them. We can look to herbs to help us out with that moment of pause, whether that's like just taking a walk and going around and going flower hunting and seeing who's around, who's awake, and admiring them for the moments that they're present, like the maple flowers. It could also be going to find a nettle and get a little baby sting, and after they grow up a bit, have a taste of that and eat some wild food and bring that into your life too. And we can consider what's new and what's barely just budding in our own lives and how we can nurture that and let that grow forward. So those are some Ostara thoughts for you, and we hope you enjoyed them and that you get to go out there and eat some wild things soon too. And we'll come back talking to you
soon.
We'll come back next time.
Happy spring, everybody.